Did we get it right? I sure hope so. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the technical difficulties. This is David Duford, just making sure, yeah, we're on the right channel now. Good. YouTube's being temperamental. Probably all these people sitting at house watching Netflix, screwing it up.
There is something about breaking the internet. That is a true thing.
That's true. That's very, very much a real thing now.
Yes.
So you are on another episode of the David Duford Show, where we talk all things insurance. And today I am interviewing, because of the coronavirus crisis, an experienced final expense telesales agent and agency owner. And his name is Thad Sipple. Thad, say hello today.
How's everybody doing? Hopefully good. Enjoying the time at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my 4 kids driving my wife absolutely crazy. So
I got 3. I know.
Yeah. So we're here today because a lot of agents have been having questions about how final expense telesales works, what the details are. And I thought, what better way to get those questions answered than actually talk with somebody who's had that actual experience. So with that said, I'm going to ask a series of questions. And then after we do that, we're going to take any questions from the audience as they come in. So Thad, if you don't mind starting, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. We'll take it from there.
Well, let's see. I've been licensed since 1996 and started out doing cold call disability sales. Worked my way into Medicare supplements, where I learned what a lead actually was. And then transitioned into final expense face-to-face, and transitioned also then into telesales, having a telesales final expense company. And that was quite an experience, I must say. And how I got into that was, well, it started out with Medicare, doing Medicare kind of appointments and Medicare face-to-face. And I owned an agency doing Medicare, and I grew up in a captive agency, 2 captive agencies. So I kind of ran my Medicare company that way, and it worked out well for me. It was the only way I knew at the time, and was making good money. And I then kind of transitioned into final expense because it's just an easier product to sell, and it's much easier over the phone to sell depending on the person you're speaking with. But with the final expense, what happened was I got a bunch of phone calls from an IMO sales guy, and we all know who these guys are. They try to get you to go with their companies, and and he was telling about this product with Forrester's, the greatest product known to man that you could sell over the phone. And the funny part about it was I kept avoiding his phone calls because I knew that he was just trying to sell me on how great it was. And us in the insurance business know that, they're very good at telling us things that are not as good as they seem sometimes. And that's kind of a joke, but you get my point. And the reason he did is I was doing avatar leads. I had a marketing company, or a lead company, that did avatar leads. I think you remember that. And we were, I think, the first company that did avatar leads.
Yeah.
And it was an easy transition to go from a telemarketed avatar lead into telesales. So he was telling me how great it was. And I was like, yeah, I've heard all that before. What happened to look at my contracts? I already had a Forrester's contract, which was the company he was trying to get me to go with. So he kind of lost out on that deal. Interestingly enough, a week later, I grabbed some leads that we were producing. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. And I tried it simply just in California, because that's where my license was at the time, and still is. And it went really, really well. I was overwhelmingly surprised and said, this is pretty easy. Now, easy is based on the fact that I grew up doing face-to-face, final expense, driving an hour and a half just to get to my appointments. And same thing with Medicare. So for me, it was easy in that sense. So a week after doing it on my own, I opened an office, started hiring a couple agents and, licensed non-agents, depending on what their role was. And Anthony Martin, some of you may know, is one of the first people that I hired, and he became my sales manager and so forth. So to kind of fast forward, we went from, 3 to 5 people in a small little office. I mean, we tucked them in there because you kind of had to a big, huge office that was, anyways, it was big enough. It held 34 people. That was our max we had. And between Anthony and I, over a 4-year period of time, we won all the contests with Forrester's. And that may not sound like much, but Forrester's had really big restrictions on persistency. It wasn't about, did you write enough business? It was about, was your persistent good enough? And did you write enough business? And in telesales, one of the things was persistency, excuse my language, sucks. And people are absolutely right in that, but we figured out a way to do it what I'd like to call the right way. And I'm going to kind of explain that because it's very important for face-to-face agents, because it's different to go from face-to-face to telesales. It's a completely different animal. So our persistency based on Forrester is about 79 to 81%. You know, we both went on the cruises. We went to Switzerland, we went to Monaco, we went to all those awesome places. And we learned how to do it the right way. Anthony was a big help in that because the dude is, well, you've interviewed him. He's a little bit different than most of us in a sense of work effort and attitude.
Yeah.
In a great way. Yeah. Anthony's a good friend of mine, so I can talk a little crap about him, but I would never do that. Anyway, so we ran the telesales company together. Yes, it was my company. He was my sales manager, but we kind of built it in a way of persistency was important. But we also had the leads to go along with that. And I will tell you, most telesales companies, not necessarily agents, they generally try to generate leads on their own because you have to get a volume amount of leads for cheap. So having the marketing company and the agency was a good fit. So when I got rid of that, and here's kind of the sob story, was Anthony decided he wanted bigger and better things. And as much as I wanted to talk him out of it, it just didn't make sense. So he left and went to his own, started his own agency and a few other things involved with that. As you may all know, he writes a ridiculous amount of business with his own pen, all telesales and all generated from his own biz for his own organic leads. For me, I also got diagnosed with cancer. So, the cool thing about insurance is if you do it right and you don't overextend yourself, you have renewals and you can theoretically take time off if you wanted to. I was able to do that, which was great. So I took 2 years off, got healthy, everything was fine, came back and said, well, I'm too young to retire. And I really didn't have that much money to actually retire. So I said, well, let's go back to selling insurance. Let's slay the insurance again. I know how to do that. The issue was in California is not just California, but nationwide, telemarketing changed. The rules completely changed. It's not a viable solution. It's theoretically illegal most of the time, at least depending on what you're doing. It wasn't my viable solution. I thought about direct mail. I'm in California. Any of you guys in Florida, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The returns are ridiculous, which means it's very expensive. I didn't really know what to do. I was kind of at a loss. And I then jumped on the phone with Anthony, talked about what he was doing. He tried to talk me into doing the exact same thing he was doing with the organic website. And the reason I didn't do that, and this is the plug to him, is it's very difficult in the sense of time consuming. I've got 3 kids, a wife, a business. I mean, it's just, I didn't have the time and the energy, to be honest with you guys, to put in the same effort that he would be able to put into it. So talked a little bit about Facebook and I decided, I think I can do that. Tried it on my own. And this was back when no one was selling a monthly subscription on how to learn how to do it and so forth. So I paid a guy in San Diego. If you look up dudes in San Diego that are gurus, you probably figure out who he is. But I paid him 10 grand to show me how to do it. I didn't want him to create the leads. I wanted to know how to do it because I knew, based on my experience of being in insurance, owning what you do to me was important. So I paid him. He showed me everything he could. He just didn't know our business. And then I probably spent about 5 grand learning it or perfecting it or figuring it out, I guess, from what he'd showed me. And then we fast forward till today. I own Digital Insurance Marketing Group. We do, we call them social media leads because it's just, it's a nice name, but it's Facebook leads. And we do Medicare, we do final expense, telesales leads, which are still Facebook leads, but they're designed for telesales. And we're also offering telesales at this point in time, telesales training for free if you buy the leads also. And the reason I'm doing it for free and the reason our costs have cut dramatically on that is it's twofold. With the coronavirus going on, we all kind of need to take a hit, if you will. And by taking a hit, I can at least pay the bills like everyone else wants to, and we all need to. But the telesales training end of it was more of, call it a personal thing. And I don't think necessarily people should charge for training, but everyone does things a little bit differently. And it's a phone script we've used for 4+ years. Anthony and I designed it together. We also have the rebuttal script and so forth, which is important. And it's a completely different animal. So that's kind of the about me, if you will, on the short version. Dave, you got the long version, and you told me, please don't read that. Everyone will.
No, you did a good job summarizing. So cool. So thanks again so much for being here. So again, the biggest concern on everybody's mind right now is the vast majority, I think you would agree, sell face-to-face for final expense. And
Yep.
we're slated with a must, arguably, I think with every passing day, it's more so pretty much obvious that we're going to have to switch and transition our business models up from face-to-face to telesales. But like
Yep.
you mentioned earlier, telesales is not the same as face-to-face. There are different ways. It's a different process to sell it. There's different leads to use. And so I'd like to jump in and kind of start there.
Sure.
For the people who are getting into telesales or thinking about it, how is telesales for final expense different in the presentation process and the lead process versus face-to-face?
Okay, this is kind of a long answer. Bear with me, my eyes move. I made a big list here because it's quite a bit different.
That's fine.
I've said this before, it's a completely different animal than face-to-face, but it's also a completely different animal than any other type of sales over the phone, simply because of the clientele. We can't change the clientele and how in their thought process of, look, they're professional procrastinators. We know this. They're 70 years old. They still haven't planned for the inevitable. So that makes it very difficult over the phone. And I'm going to tell you why. It's trust. Trust is the biggest problem with over the phone versus face-to-face. Here's why. I can walk into a home and they trust me within a few moments, hopefully. If they don't, I lost because I wore the wrong clothes that day. But I can also show them a brochure and somehow, bam, they trust me. And it could be, I could write stuff on a white piece of paper and they trust me. Over the phone, I always like to say you have to ask the same question 3 different times in 3 different ways, and you better get the same answer or else you've lost. And the other thing that face-to-face is or over the phone is different is building that trust takes a really long time. And I always tell agents, when you think you've earned the right to ask them a question like, not your social, because that's way at the end, literally even a health question, if you think you've earned that right, you probably haven't, you better wait. Meaning go super duper slow. Everything's much slower because of trust. Face-to-face versus telesales. I don't know if they smoke. And if I walk into the home on face-to-face, I can smell it. I can see it. I know they smoke. I can see the oxygen. I can't with telesales. So you have to do things at a very softer pace. And softer pace means you can't hit them hard. Telesales, in my opinion, is harder work. Now, and a lot of face-to-face guys will probably beat me up on that one, but if you listen to what I'm saying, you might understand this. With telesales, if you're not on the phone for 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now that's not 6.5 hours a day thinking you're dialing, you're talking, or you're waiting for a phone call. And if you're not doing that every single day for 5 days, most likely you'll do okay, but you're probably going to fail because you just don't have the luxury of time in your favor of hitting the right numbers, calling the people enough times that you would need to versus face-to-face. With face-to-face, we're driving. I know that's working. Look, driving's not that hard. It's not, unless you're a truck driver, then I guess you are working. But driving's not that difficult in the sense of, am I working? And a lot of agents really probably only work hard for 3 days a week, like really, really hard. So it's just different. It's a little bit harder in the sense of time. Let's see. The other thing is with face-to-face versus telesales, which I know we're going to point out later, is you need more leads. You need a lot more. Close ratio is going to be a lot different. It's ridiculously different. And I'm going to point out here, I am not trying to recruit anybody. Yes, I want you to buy my leads, but I'm being realistic in senses of, and David, you doing this, I don't BS. I'll tell people the truth of close ratios, because to foo-foo what telesales really is, it only hurts the agent. And even as an agency owner, I learned this a long time ago, I could sell people on the dream, but sooner or later, they're going to figure out the dream wasn't real. And that did me no good. It just wasted my time.
Right.
Telesales is great because you're not limited to, I don't know, a 50-mile radius or a 100-mile radius. Telesales, you literally can work as many states as possible. And as long as you're willing to pay for the license and you're willing to be on the phone, you can't really do that with face-to-face, even though there are some agents that will drive, forever to get somewhere. That can be an advantage. It also can be a disadvantage. I think it's an advantage because you're not limiting yourself to the county or the city. Leads are cheaper. But there's a caveat to leads are cheaper, the close ratio is less. So really, are the leads cheaper? Probably not. They're probably about the same price in the sense of the overall acquisition, cost, but in the sense of the lead, yes, they're cheaper. Right now we're doing a special. It's $850 per lead. You get the telesales script. You order at least a state. That's way cheaper than $1650 or $1950, which is what most are selling. But you do need more leads. The quality of the lead, the interesting part about telesales, and we've looked at the analytics over not only the 4-year period I was doing it, but with huge companies that are doing it right now. And the quality of the lead for telesales is moot. It's not exponentially going to change the close ratio to make up for the cost of the lead. Face-to-face, if you change the quality a little bit, that can exponentially change the close ratio based on door knocking and based on trust. And the biggest reason is trust. It's really all about trust. You can have the greatest product out there. And I'm going to sidetrack for a second in the sense of trust, but we only sold Foresters, one company, and we sold a ton of it. Now later RNA got out there, Liberty Bankers and such, but we sold Foresters, and they were generally just a little bit higher than most companies. I mean, you could have walked in there and killed any one of my products. They didn't buy the company per se or the price. They bought what we were selling over the phone. And we never compared 3 different companies. We simply said, you can buy a $50 product, a $30 product, or a $40. Which one you want? And they chose, versus here's all the companies that are in your area. This one's the cheapest. Let's buy the cheapest, if that makes any sense. So it's a different animal over the phone. You have to think about it as, that the company you're selling is probably more expensive than the one face-to-face, but you can't control that. So you have to almost ignore it and not even worry about it. You need a lot thicker skin because you're going to get no's constantly. You're going to get 300 no's a day and 2 yeses. Face-to-face, you get 2 no's and you get 4 no's and 3 yeses. Well, because you're not seeing the same amount of people. You better be able to take that, and it's really difficult. And the thing is, to be able to do that and still do the same thing, the same script over and over, you're like a robot. And what was the coolest part about when Anthony and I worked together and when I had the telesales company, is you walk in a huge office and it's like a bunch of robots, like a bunch of mini-me's, I guess is the best way to put that, because they're reading the script verbatim. It's pretty cool. Okay. I think that answers that question, but if not, let me know.
Oh man, awesome. Yeah, I know everybody watching this loving this. So I want to hit something you hit on that I think is the biggest component. You mentioned it several times throughout your answer there, and that's trust. Mm-hmm. I want to know, what does an agent need to do differently on the phone to build that trust? What do they need to establish before they have the right, like you said, to actually sell them or pre-qualify them or talk product?
It's taking your time. It's explaining everything overly. You have to over communicate everything, and you have to ask those questions. And the biggest thing I can probably say is shut up and listen. We literally used to. I'll tell you a quick little story, and this segues into it. When I worked for United American Insurance Company, I ended up being like a unit manager, which was a cool name, really. It was kind of like an agency owner, but not really, much smaller level. I went to Utah once and I was training an agent, and it was freezing, and we both looked like we were coming off a missionary. And we're sitting down, and this agent's just talk. He won't shut up, right? I get on a piece of paper and I said, shut the, what up. And I just pulled it up like this, and he shut up. They finally spoke. He fixed the problem, meaning whatever they spoke about, or he found out the motive, and he was able to sell them. What I tell people is shut up and listen. And one of the ways on the phone that I recommend you do that, and I recommend in person too, wiggle your toes. It's the dumbest thing ever, but if you wiggle your toes, you're going to smile. And if you smile, sometimes it's projected over the phone and also in person, but it gets you to be quiet and listen. Because if you just talk, you're the typical salesman, and they don't want that. Everyone loves to talk, which means you need to listen as the salesperson. That builds that trust. And so one of the things with our phone script is we literally tell people, read it verbatim. Now, if someone asks a question, you stop, answer the question, and go right back to the phone script. And one of the things you'll learn with telesales is you almost have to not listen to listen. What I mean by that is if they ask you a direct question, what's the price? And you certainly don't want to give that right away, because you give it right away, they can hang up, they have all the information. They can leave you faster than if you're in the home. And what you want to do is rebuttal that and then go right back to the script. You almost ignore you even said it. And agents have a difficult time with when someone says, if they say, yeah, I've been looking, it's, I've looked everywhere. I looked at Lincoln Heritage, and an agent's going, oh, they looked at Lincoln Heritage, they're going to buy from me. Problem is they don't trust you. Right. And you're going to get off the phone and go, why wouldn't they buy? I was $40 cheaper, whatever the math is. So trust is really taking your time and explaining everything in an over-communicative way and asking a lot of questions and then reiterating those questions throughout the entire timeline that you're on the phone. Not just, we're not silver bullet trying to drive home the price. They don't care about the price. And that's what you need to think about, because the price, you're not going to be the cheapest over the phone. They're buying you and the idea. That one's a really tough one to answer on the phone, but I will tell you it is, or through this with really diving deep, because that wasn't one of the questions you gave me per se.
That was a great answer. No, that was good.
Anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a function of just shutting up and listening and asking good questions,
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot more, over the, in person, I remember walking into people's homes and you're in and out sometimes in 15, 20 minutes with a check, and you're going, they just gave me a check.
Yeah.
And you're like, why did they do that? Over the phone, that's an hour. It's 40, 50, 60 minutes to go that process. And that makes it very difficult. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of what I understood. Now it's funny. I've talked to you, Ramiz Hakim. You guys do kind of a similar, more lengthier script for the same reasons.
Yeah.
I talk to other agents that it's a straight line sale, 20 minutes on the phone. And to me, looking from the outside in, my first reaction would be, they don't see you. They don't know who you are on the phone. You're just another telemarketer they get all the time. It seems to me it's a smarter move to take a lot of time to develop a relationship with these leads.
And so, I'm going to segue on that a second. Is one of the reasons we had good persistency and we built the trust was callbacks. When you're face-to-face, I think the rule of thumb is you can't close them there. You literally tell them, I'm not coming back. I don't care if you beg me, I will not come back. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In California, I do it slightly differently when I was doing face-to-face, but over the phone, our statistic was, it may have gotten better over the years, is 50-50. You're going to sell 50% of the people one call close, but you got to spend a lot of time with them. You're going to sell the rest of them over a period of time, maybe 2, 3, 4 calls. And Anthony used to come in every day and go, hey, I got 3 sales for you today. I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah. And he'd have 3 sales. And every now and again, he'd get that one call close, walk away with 4 sales in a day, because he knew that he was following up with people correctly to either build the trust or overcome those objections. Could be a social objection, could be a banking, could be I got to talk to my kid objection. So you have to go into telesales, not with the one call close mindset, with the follow-up is extremely important, touching them. And if they don't answer, you just keep touching them, because as long as they understand the concept and you found the motive properly, there's no reason they won't buy except trust. And how do you build that trust? You have to follow up with them. I mean, you literally have to tell them, like the next time you call them, look, if I'm calling you again, which means I'm a real person, I'm someone who actually cares about your situation. If I was a scam artist, I wouldn't call you back. Do you want to know why? You're too smart. I wouldn't be able to scam you because you've already called me on it. I'm calling you back because this is a real thing. Plus, I'm going to get you on the phone with the insurance company, and there's a lot of other things involved to help build that trust. And that's the other thing the agents do, is they don't explain the process properly, which we'll obviously get into, but trust is huge, and it's a lot different.
So are we saying that you're not saying the goal is not the one call close? Mm-hmm. You're going to try to close on the first call, right?
It's much softer, and
really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can still try to close them 2-3 times, meaning overcoming the objection on why they don't want to do it now. And usually it's social, it's banking. The affordability one's tough because you can't really tell, can they afford it? You're not looking at their iPhone when you're sitting in front of them, right, or whatever laptop they have where you can use it as an example. But It's a softer close. You close hard, they're not going to trust you at all. You have to do it very softly, and you have to do it in a very caring, empathetic way where they have to feel like you care about them. And you can't project that the same over the phone as you can in person, simply because in person you can just touch their hand and they're like, this guy's the most caring person in the world.
Yeah.
Over the phone, you can't, there's nothing to, like, you can't relate to that. You have to relate to them in different ways and care about them much differently, so that they realize you're not closing them to make a sale, you're closing them to help them. So you have to think of it as more of a nurse, doctor, bedside manner thing, I guess, the best way to put that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, good way to put it. So if you go for the close and they give you resistance and they tell you no, are you basically following up and saying, let me call you back the next day? Do you let them know, or is it just pre-programmed in that you will, despite what they say?
Well, I think the close is, and not to throw out, when you buy the leads, you're going to get the script, but the close is in there in the sense of you're explaining the process. And a lot of face-to-face agents do it differently, but you explain the process. Once they decide, I want a $8,000 burial plan, and you go, well, that's $46.23 per month, or you can get 10, or you can get 7, whatever, however you close. We do a three question close. Once they pick one, you're not going, great, let's get into the app. What's your social? You then go, okay, let me explain how this whole process works. And you go through the whole process. No one's going to come to your home, which is great right now because of the coronavirus. You can really use that. I think telesales close ratio is going to go up because you can use that to your advantage. You're going to explain the process, and you're going to constantly ask them, does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that? You're going to explain the application process. You're going to explain, if I was in your home, it'd be the same application process. You'd say things like, have you ever filled out a health insurance application, car insurance application, even life insurance? They go, yes. You go, it's the same process. The difference is over the phone. And you're being very slow. You're very, very kind of mirroring them so that they feel like you really do care, which again, we should, but you get my point. We're not closing them in the sense of, it's the same, it's a soft close. It's a little bit softer than in person. You're going to explain the process. They continue to say yes. And you're going to be great. Now let me start filling out the application. You told me earlier, the beneficiary, which here's a good plug for my company. When you're getting the telesale leads from us, we're getting Dream Vacation Spot, which is, you asked me a question here that we're probably going to go over, how to lower the wall of, I want to hang up on you. We're getting the Dream Vacation Spot, and we're also getting the beneficiary's name. Now, the reason that's important, and with telesales, we don't need it. We can literally do a lot less, because with telesales, you need their first name and their phone number. You don't need anything else. We're getting more because I think it's just a little bit better lead. But you already know the beneficiary's information. So part of the phone script is going over the beneficiary's name. And I'll give you an example. When I used to do face-to-face sales, I would ask them, who's going to take care of your burial when you pass away? They'd say their daughter, and I'd say, what's her name? They'd say Jane Smith, and I'd look around the house looking for a picture of Jane Smith. And if I found a picture, I'd walk up, I'd get up, I'd go grab the picture, and I'd put it right next to us. Now, over the phone, I'm going to say Jane Smith's name about 4 billion times, as many times as I can plug that. And I'm going to reiterate, so if you were to pass away, Jane has to take care of your burial, right? And they go, yes. And you don't have anything in place to pay for the burial right now, right? And they go, yes. So Jane's going to be stuck with that bill, right? Now, I don't know if that was 3 times, but I'm going to do it again to make it 3 times so that they really are emotionally involved. Face to face, you don't need as much emotion, I guess is the best way to put that. Over the phone, if they cry, you win. And I mean that in the best way possible. So anyway, I think I segued there for a minute, but anyways, go ahead.
Oh, excellent. No, that's wonderful, because we lack the same advantages a face-to-face agent has with body language and eye contact, human touch, and that communicates a lot. So you do have to, like you said, you've got to reiterate the points, explain them differently, because sometimes it takes that 3rd time to have it click in their mind.
Exactly. And that's why I say 3 times the same question, but in 3 different ways. Which is that whole Jane Smith's taking care of it. You die, Jane Smith's responsible, yada, yada, yada. So anyways.
So let's talk about, so I had a question from my audience. They asked, how do you capture attention within the first minute to prevent the prospect from hanging up?
So that's where, for us, we use the Dream Vacation Spot and the beneficiary's name. I think both of those kind of run hand in hand, but it's literally, I don't have the script in front of me, but you're reminding them that they responded on Facebook, And one of the questions was different leads, does the script change? No, only the intro changes. And the intro is, you responded to a phone call the other day regarding whatever you want to state, regulated burial benefits, life insurance, whatever you want to say. We say final expense benefits. And you'd mentioned your dream vacation was Hawaii. And you said your beneficiary's name was Jane Smith. It helps trigger the call. But what I will tell you, or trigger the memory of the call, what I will say is, if they do hang up, you got to call them back. Don't call them back right away. Wait a day. And here's why: timing. Timing usually is the worst thing. I mean, we used to look at the analytics pretty deep because we had to. We were, profit margins in telesales are pretty small the first year and a half, 2 years. So looking at analytics, we found a lot of times we would make a sale from someone that responded 6 months ago. Now, when I say a lot of times, I mean very little, but it was interesting seeing that. So call them back a day or two later, disposition the call properly. We say, call them tomorrow. They're probably not even going to remember that you called them the day before. If they do, it's okay. Go, you know what? That's right. I did call you. You said your beneficiary, and then switch it up. You said your beneficiary is Jane Smith. Is that your daughter or your sister? And then you've asked a question they kind of have to answer. Now, if they, we used to tell agents, we continue to call them back until they literally say, do not call me again. Because a lot of times it is timing. The other side to that is you also have to realize these people are responding to other ads on Facebook, other telemarketed calls, other social media. So it might not be the ad that they responded to that triggers their interest that we sent you or someone else did. It could be a different ad. And then when you call them, you just happen, I get agents to go, hey, someone already called this lead. I'm like, dude, they respond to more stuff. But that ad could have been the trigger. It could have been a movie they watched last night. So I'd say call them back. But the biggest thing is if you have at least, and this is going to be the problem with telesales leads in the sense of what people are selling now, you need the information. Getting a dream vacation or a hobby is important, and it does trigger things. We used to do what's called a pattern interruption, where we would stop after the intro or after we tell them about ourselves and go, hey, you told me you like going to Hawaii, or that's your dream vacation. Have you been there? And then, you start talking about that. It's called a pattern interruption. Everyone who's been, most people have read something about that. So dream vacation spot beneficiary helps with that. It's not a silver bullet. Nothing is a silver bullet with this clientele. You could have caught them on a bad day, they took the wrong medication at the wrong time. Call them back. Don't give up on the lead because it costs money. It's not like face-to-face. Face-to-face is different. We're kind of taught throw away bad leads. I don't know if I agree with that, but that's just me. Anyways, hopefully that answers the question. There's no silver bullet, so I don't have a great thing to say. But if you have the dream vacation spot and you have the beneficiary, use it to your advantage.
Great. Excellent. So you mentioned early on about the difference in conversion rates between face-to-face selling and over the phone. Can you describe what a new agent should expect as far as conversion rates off of, say, your leads or any leads in general? And then also what they can strive towards, what's considered to be a good and then a great number for conversion?
I really hate that question. And the reason I hate it is because it's just, no one loves to hear the real answer. So we used to crunch our numbers on a 3% close rate. And as a business, we crunched it on 3% because we knew we were going to be right on track. We would normally get about a 5% close rate. Also keep in mind that we were dealing with non-licensed agents and licensed agents and the type of lead. I would crunch your numbers on 5 to 12%. If you exceed that, great. If you don't, and you hit that 5 to 12%, you're within budget and you're able to at least know how many leads you need. And I know that sounds terrible, but I think the reality is if we get 40 leads and everyone says there's a 20% close ratio, do we always sell 8 a week on 40 leads? I don't know, maybe. You throw a husband and wife in there, I guess you did. But at the end of the day, was it the 40 leads or was it the husband and wife that changed that? And the problem is that I had with my telesales company is I'm an insurance sales guy. I'm a sales guy. I'm not a businessman. It took me a long time to really look at cost per acquisition, look at analytics, really understand and dive deep into what makes my business run and what's the most profitable. But at the end of the day, if your close ratio is 5% and you need 5 sales per week to pay your bills, you need 100 leads. It's just the math. And you need to adapt to that because telesales is different. And it's not, I will tell you this. We worked with the company all last year. They were buying 6,000 telesales final expense leads a month. They gave us an extra budget of $2,000 to generate different types of quality of the same lead. So it's a Facebook lead, but we'd change the wording. We would change get quote. We would change insurance 3-4 times. We'd say, it costs $25 a month starting. We would make it as direct as we could. We did landing. We did everything you could possibly think of. And the lead cost exponentially went up, but the close rate never actually exponentially went up. It might go up a little bit, but we also couldn't get enough leads for the type of lead that was better quality. So the issue is with telesales, it's not really about the lead. I mean, I hate to say that, and maybe this is me making an excuse for my leads, but if I were to be realistic, and even anyone's leads across the board, we're all doing the same thing. We're all based on the same platform. The wording is all basically the same. Putting insurance in there and not putting insurance doesn't necessarily change the lead that much. Throwing Social Security in there changes the lead more because they think it's more free. But at the end of the day, your close rate for telesales is going to be about the same across the board. Maybe it'll go up, a percentage or two here, but a percentage close rate or even a 3% close rate increase doesn't make up for the cost difference. If you buy our 1950 lead, which is, a higher quality lead, you're not going to sell double versus the 850 lead. And actually it'd have to be more than double. So with telesales, keep in mind, and this is the hard part for agents, is you're going to go through calls upon calls upon calls and get no's all day long. If you run it properly and do the follow-up properly, that's where your close rate's going to increase. So you could walk out tomorrow, buy 100 leads, you're probably going to sell 3 to 5% to start. Once you get better and you realize this is where I stumble the most, if you're following the phone script properly, you know where to make the changes. And that's where agents who are not faced, that's where agents make a mistake, is they don't do the same thing repetitively. So they don't ever know what their mistake is. Once you figure that out and you follow up properly, your close rate will start to go up. What it should be, if you're following up properly, about 12%, 10 to 12% with really any lead. I mean, I'm not just talking my lead. You can go anywhere you want and get leads, and you'll probably do about 10 to 12% if you follow up properly. And I can't say that enough. Close softly, follow up hard. So if that made sense, close softly, but follow up hard. The follow up hard isn't close hard. It means constantly follow up. Beat the crap out of them till they're on the phone, and then again, close softly. And to parlay off of the follow up, when you follow up, you almost have to do the phone script all over again. Now, obviously you can cut corners, but you have to go through the whole, you can't just go, hey, I talked to you 2 days ago. It was $50 a month. You want to buy? No, you have to almost restart the conversation. And the neat thing is I should probably do a follow-up script because that's as important as the first script. Anyways, hopefully that helped.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So I put a note here to discuss why persistency sucks with telesales. My first thought is it the Indian or is it the arrow? Is it the carriers, or is it the lack of carrier selection, or is it how the policy is sold over the phone?
It's a trust over the phone is the first one. And the reason I say that is you've pushed them so hard that they are saying they're going to buy and they give you the wrong information. The other side of that is the agent, and I'm pointing out all the agents because we used to do this too. Not you, David, not you at all. It's all the other ones. No, so we used to do this too, and I learned, as a small business, I know we had 34 employees at one, well, that was the most, but we learned quick that chargebacks will kill any agent in any business. Is getting the correct banking information. That is the hardest part over the phone, and that is what agents mess up on the most. So what happens is, and I'll tell you this, if you don't, the banking information is more important than the sale itself. I would rather you not get a sale and get the right banking information. That sounds stupid, right? But think about it from that point. The banking information is more important than the sale itself. You mess up on the banking information, you're never going to get that client back ever. The percentage is so low, it's not even worth it. So getting the banking information is more important. What we used to do is if we couldn't get it correct on the spot, let's say the bank is closed, we can't call them, or some other way to get the bank information, we wouldn't just wing it and say, let's look on the internet. The internet's always right. We would say, let me call you tomorrow when the bank's open. we would not do the sale to make sure the banking information is correct, because they will give you the wrong information. Do you want to know why? Professional procrastinators, they know how to work the system. I'll give you an example. When I go to Costco and the DirecTV guy goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I go, "I already have DirecTV, bro." Guess what he does? He leaves me alone. These people know how to do the same thing. They'll give you the wrong information. Getting the banking information, I'm going to stop there first. I'm going to go over that. When they give it to you from the actual check, which makes it difficult, most people don't have checks now, but you got to get it somehow. We would make them read it to us, then we'd read it back and we'd make a mistake, not just once, but twice. We would verify it again. We used to tell all the employees, if you get the banking wrong, you're fired. It's that important, because you have to think about this. You're going to make sales, and if you don't get it correct, the next month, guess how many chargebacks you're going to have? And it's our fault as the agents to get the wrong information. More importantly, what I would tell the client is this. When I was getting the banking, I would say, "Mrs. Jones, the most important part is this information, because if the information I get from you is wrong and you pass away, the insurance company is not going to pay your beneficiary the $8,000. Do you want to know why? Because I screwed up, and I don't want that on my conscience. So we really need to make sure this is correct. Is that okay? Not right, but is that okay with you, Mrs. Jones?" It's kind of more of a caring thing. That's where persistency was the worst. We really didn't have a follow-up system, to be honest with you. A lot of the bigger companies have follow-up systems. They have a retention team. We didn't do that. And the reason being is we were small. We weren't these huge companies. Like Razim's he's huge, dude. He's a huge company. He can do that. We couldn't. So we had to do it right the first time, because we couldn't afford to do it right the second time or fix our first mistake. So anyway.
Interesting. So let's think of the at-home agent now that is going into the telesales arena. Let's think technology, equipment, tools. What is the recommended platform or equipment necessary in order to do this over the phone, to sell final expense over the phone?
So first and foremost, call your carriers, find out which one accept it. That it seems like a no-brainer, but unfortunately, they'll go, "Oh, this company will do it." But more importantly, call the carrier and ask them, "How do I do this? What's really the process? And what are the biggest mistakes agents make?" And a lot of time it's prepping the client, so the client knows what's going to happen, whether it's a aptical call. And to be honest with you, I don't know what a lot of companies have changed the way they do it. But if it's an aptical call, what's going to happen on that? What questions are going to be asked? What are the disclaimers or disclosures that aptical or whoever the third party is going to ask my client? So you can prep the client, not coach the client, prep the client. That was a joke. But seriously, you have to let the client know what's going to happen. Part of this process is preparing the client for the next step, and then making sure they understand the next step. So call the carrier. "How do I do this? What's the right way to?" Don't ask your buddy who does it. I mean, you can ask your buddy, but call the carrier. You can ask your upline. I would call the carrier. The first time I did it myself, and then I called the carrier and go, what more could I do better, in a nutshell? You need a good quality phone script, and you can't just wing it. And to be dead honest, the phone script is probably very similar to what your script is in the home. The difference is it's much bigger and it's more word for word. Follow the phone script verbatim every single time till you figure out what you do wrong. And you got to have a rebuttal script, and you follow it. Boiler Room, if you ever watch Boiler Room, it's a great one in the sense of the dude's got the little tickler thing.
Sketchbook. Yeah,
exactly. Get a dialer, maybe not your first round, but you're going to need a lot of leads. And I'm going to say old leads, meaning a week or two leads, are good, because you're going to want to call constantly. I mean, if you think about this, if you're going to be on the phone for 6.5 hours, how many leads is that? It's a lot. So initially you're going to have to pump up, and you're going to need a dialer to do that. And you're going to have to set your dispositions properly so that it's recycled the right way. And I would almost do Monday through Thursday is, I don't want to say new leads, but newish leads. And Fridays is everything old plus the new leads, just, because you need to cycle through. You need a lot of leads, especially in the beginning. Because, if you think about this, if you get 40 leads tomorrow, you're going to burn through 40 leads in 3 hours. And then you're going to be sitting there going, what do I do now? So you need a lot to start. Once you figure out your close ratio, then kind of scale down with, okay, I want 5 sales a week. I need, 50 leads if you're selling at 10%, something like that. The transition's not that difficult, really. Like when I did it, I transitioned a week later. I had an office and 4 computers, and I hired 4 people, and then I bought 2 more computers. Well, I built them myself because I can do that, but I bought like cheap crap. But I just did what I had to do. It's not that difficult if you have the script. I will say, just if you guys are already with an upline and you have, a company that's already in your bag, if you will, that does telesales, don't go looking for some guru that's going to sell you some. Just get a phone script. You can order from us, you're going to get it for free. I'm sure there's a ton out there you can get for free if you look. Follow the phone script and then talk to people and figure out what you're doing wrong. Record yourself. Record yourself a ton. We have so many recordings of agents selling, and we'd sit with them. Anthony was king on, he'd sit with the agent and he would go over an hour phone script and he would dissect it with them. I was too lazy for that. I'm the typical sales dude. I'm too lazy to do it. Anthony was both business and sales, so it was great. And he would dissect it. You can hear yourself saying and asking questions, or your tone. And if you hear I don't know about you, but I hate listening to myself speak with a microphone. I love this. I can do this all day.
Right.
That's what I hate. But if you listen to yourself, like I'll sometimes say, like I'll get off the phone with a guy and I'll be like, bye-bye. I'm like, why did I say bye-bye? That's like the dumbest thing ever. But if you hear yourself, you realize what you're doing wrong. Anyway, starting is actually not that hard. Get a dialer. If you don't have one, just make sure that you're marking your leads properly so you can call them back. Don't be afraid to be blind. Reason dialers are good is because you're blind of the lead. You don't know that you called them 2 hours ago. And a lot of it, and the other thing I was going to say was, get about 5 phone numbers that you can use as a caller ID. And it's not, I'm going to call it a spoof, but it's not. If they're your phone numbers, you're not spoofing. Have like five phone numbers, Google number, whatever, that actually come into some sort of voicemail, and use those as a caller ID so that it doesn't look like you're calling over and over and over again. And think about this in your head. If you call them 5 times today and the caller ID rotated 5 times, you didn't really call them 5 times, did you? I mean, you did, but they don't know you did. So don't mind F yourself into thinking, I called this person 5 times. They're still not answering. This is the worst lead ever. They might not, I mean, they're going to be home right now, but they might not know maybe they're not answering because they don't care right now. So anyways, hopefully.
Excellent. Well, Thad, this has been an excellent, remarkable training. I think everybody watching this will absolutely agree. I certainly appreciate your time. And before we go, please tell us where we can find out more about your leads. What's the website? And then remind us of the free script offer that comes with it.
Right. So just go to dimgleads.com. So digital, it's short for Digital Insurance Marketing Group.com, dimgleads.com. It's our top 2 products, or really it's only one there. So it's $850 a lead. You do have to pick either 1 state or more. Now, I'm going to be dead honest. The more states you pick, the better my profit margin, but that's not the reason. I mean, it helps. The reason is you can determine based on your licenses in which state you close better. And what that is, it could be your accent. It could be your tone of voice. You may be better in Alabama and I may suck in Alabama because I talk too fast. And there's a lot more to this training stuff that you could go over. We could go over with you in tones and mirroring and such. But, and you may realize in Texas you do better, or Florida, wherever it would be. That's why more states is better. Yes, it does help our profit margin. I'm not going to lie. The more states, the cheaper it's going to be for us. The price is still the price, but you get to go, God, in California I do really well, or whatever state, Montana. So it's $850 per lead. The minimum order is 40, which is $340. You're going to get the telesales script. Everything's going to go into HubSpot CRM, which you can then export into Excel if you want, or you can work it from there and make notes. You will also get, and we're doing this just because you're going to get a lead card with it. Doesn't really matter because you can't really door knock, but it's just part of our, we haven't changed that process, but you're going to get the script. If you have an agency where you're going to be like, hey, we got 5, 6, 7 guys that are going to do this, we're going to jump hard. I will do a training like this, more training versus interview. I'll go over our rebuttals, because the biggest rebuttal, the biggest thing you guys are going to come up with, which I'm not going to go over right now, is how do you get the social security number, and how do you get the, I know I muted it too. That's funny.
Just 2 minutes, please.
Okay, go back. You're going to get the telesales script, but the rebuttals are the biggest things there, and how to get the social security number and the banking. Getting the social and the banking is very difficult over the phone. And I've already gotten calls and texts about how do I do that? That's where I'm getting killed. And that's where you're not only going to want to buy the leads, but text me and let's set something up. I'll do it for free. Obviously, I want you to buy the leads, of course, but that's where you're going to get hung up, is how to get that information. And we should have talked about that, because that's actually one of the biggest things. But if you follow the phone script verbatim, that's the only objection you're going to get, because these are yes or no questions and we get really in depth with it. Go for it.
Life is ready to throw the towel in, ladies and gentlemen. That the perils of working at home, Thad, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I got, let's see, there were 9, 11, and 13, and oh yeah, we're with you.
Yeah, surprisingly quiet over there. That's lucky you, not here.
I already walked, so I walked out there before the interview with a belt and said, if anyone speaks.
The dog gets it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thad, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Please check out his leads. I would definitely say, based on what I've heard today, purchasing his leads is well worth getting that script. So again, if you guys have any questions, comments, please leave them below in the video. And until next time, Thad, everybody else, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Bye now.
Yeah, man. See ya.